Hi lovelies! So this is a Galactic Mayan astrology report for the 13th of April 2019, and if you have seen any of my other videos you will see that I am looking rather different. I've gone brunette, and yeah, it really kind of symbolises for me where I'm at the moment and how many huge big shifts and changes have been going on. And I know that we've all been feeling it too, and we're now moving into the white dog wave spell, and the white dog wave spell is my birth wave spell, so it's really interesting timing. Like at the moment I am personally like updating and rebranding and, you know, really allowing, because the thing is we go through all of these changes, especially when we're doing personal development, and I've always been the kind of person that then comes out of. Do you know what I mean? It's like it always is shown on the outside, and I think it's really important for us to, you know, in traditional astrology we're in Aries time, and it is this rebirth moment within our lives where we can really, you know, allow our lives to shift and change, and, you know, what we're presenting to the world to shift and change as a result of, you know, the differences that we've made to ourselves through this personal development and just generally through being, you know, a human on planet Earth at this time. So white dog wave spell is all about unconditional love. It's all about our birth family. It's all about looking at those codes of energy that have been with us, you know, from day one and before. So white dog is really, you know, this time where we're probably going to be looking at this concept of unconditional love, and that often means that we're kind of coming at it and seeing the opposite. You know, we get to see where we are conditionally loving and where we are receiving this conditional love. And, you know, with all of the personal development perspectives on things, all of the experiences that we have in early childhood, everything that we go through really sets the building blocks then, you know, for the relationship that we have with ourselves. We are literally programmed by the relationships around us as to what our relationship with ourselves will be. And that is what white dog's all about. You know, it's really about distilling, you know, this understanding to the place where we can then recognise when we're in that internal battle space, when we're having those incredibly critical moments, or when we're having that like polarisation within us, we can then look and see, who is this representing? Where did this come from? I personally had a really big journey with some family members earlier on in the year, and it's been the most incredible thing. It really exploded, but that explosion allowed me to see, and us to see, whether they chose to see it or not, you know, the difference between what was mine and what had been implanted and therefore grown, you know. And it's a really amazing opportunity to step into a different version of ourselves, a different version of relationship with ourselves, when we can see that actually this thing that we've kind of unconsciously believed for such a long time is just the way that it is, you know, within the relationships that we have with ourselves and with other people. When we can really give that moment to recognise the root of it, there's something that happens within that shifts and opens up this opportunity to see, oh, it doesn't have to be like that. Oh, that's not actually mine. Oh wait, that isn't actually what I want. So within this wave spell, we're really going to go through this process of separating out what it is that's ours and what it is that has been kind of put onto us. And a lot of the time as well, you know, within this idea of conditional love, you know, it's this, you've got to do this in order to receive love. You've got to do this in order to be worthy. So it's a really good opportunity within our lives to look at any aspect of us that thinks that we have to do this, you know, and really whatever that this is. Because the interesting thing that happens is that sometimes these drivers that are underneath our behaviours can put us into really positive places. You know, we've got this crazy driver that's about making loads of money, or that's about you know, having a really healthy body, and, you know, being all of these different things, whatever the you know, it can be a really shiny, wonderful end goal, but if the driver that's underneath it is coming from that space of wound, what are we going to get? So it's a really beautiful time to be checking in with the shoulds. What is it that we feel like we should be doing, and why is that? And really incorporating these self-love practices so that we're then able to come into a space where we can rest in the knowing and in the understanding that, you know, we are inherently worthy. So with White Dog as well, as I've mentioned, you know, it's not just the relationship with ourselves, but the relationship with others. You know, it's all one and the same thing. So we can find within White Dog Wavespell that we really get to see where our heart is still struggling to be open. We get to witness, you know, what it is that is in the way of us really being able to be present with another human being. We might be revisiting old abusive patterns from the past. We might be coming up against the stories that we all have of betrayal. Because, you know, White Dog, like I say, is all about relationship. It's all about unconditional love. And as a human being on planet Earth at this time, we've all been through these incredibly difficult experiences of what it means to be in love, in relationship. You know, we've all had relationships that have been out of balance, because as a collective we are very much out of balance. We're coming back into balance, but where we're at and where we've been is very out of balance. And, you know, this idea also of epigenetics that's really been opened up at the moment in very mainstream fields basically is coming to the understanding that, you know, shamanic traditions and other, you know, alternative spiritual traditions have always recognised that we inherit what has gone on before us if it's not dealt with. So this idea of clearing the ancestral line, epigenetics is now like the scientific understanding that, oh wow, we do actually inherit trauma. This is a thing. And it's a beautiful time, you know, I say this all the time and I feel this all the time. It's a really amazing time to be on the planet because everything's matching up now. And this is a slight digression, but when I was recently in the States, had the most heart-opening, super expansive moment of like, whoa, and I'm going to begin to start sharing things around, you know, children and education in due course. But I was with a friend that I'd made there, a couple that I was staying with. They were Christian, and he got out his book that was all about, you know, the underlying emotional and thought causes of imbalances within the body. And this was a Christian preacher that had written the book. And it's just really that time of like these separate camps. Even though the mainstream media is telling us a very different story, the reality that we're all experiencing and living, if we're able to see it, is that all of these different camps now, all of those understandings, all of the esoteric wisdom of what this reality is about and how it operates is being opened up. So the field of science, like with epigenetics, is now merging with the shamanic understanding of things, of this clearing ancestral patterns and lines. We've also then got, you know, this Christian understanding of the body system, which is totally in alignment with holistic medicine. And, you know, it's like, it's just coming together, and it's a really profound moment for that. But to get back to what I was saying about epigenetics, you know, it's this thing, you know, within this Wavespell, within this White Dog energy, because it's about tribe and our birth tribe, we really get to see the inherited trauma, and it stops with us if we choose for it to stop with us. You know, and, you know, as a collective, we are at a time where in the past few generations, we've been through world wars, we've been through incredible amounts of trauma, and this is still happening in different places on the planet. But all of that, you know, there wasn't really it's like this idea of the New Age movement and all of these conscious, you know, communities and conscious practices that can sometimes get a bit dark because we've not fully yet been able to integrate, you know, wounds, and it can get a bit like, ugh, which is why I tend to not be in really any communities. I kind of float, and it's always what I've done actually. I was thinking about this the other day when I was at school. I was never in a group of people. I was always the drifter, never really had like big issues with anybody, but never really had like, oh, this is my group and this is where, you know, we stay together all the time. I was always that floater, and I feel very much like that now. And that means that a lot of the time I am a bit of a loner, and I'm very introverted, even though, you know, in situations like this, and, you know, people that know me in the flesh will say, oh, you know, you're really outgoing and you're really up there. But it was interesting this morning, we were talking about how, you know, I can do that flash of being really present and being really there and being kind of extroverted, and then boof, I need like months to come down from it and to, you know, to recalibrate. But this whole thing of, you know, all of the camps are coming together now, and the New Age movement is really, you know, opened up this space where personal development is a pretty mainstream thing now. You know, as a collective, we are coming into a space, and yeah, mostly within privileged communities and circles, but there is that, like, especially with the internet, there's this like growing vibe of responsibility and personal development, whereas in previous generations there was so much focus on survival that there wasn't the space for that to happen. So when it comes to this inherited trauma, when it comes to all of this, you know, all of this stuff that is kind of the horrendous things that our families have been through, it is now filtering down into microcosms within our own lives, because we have got the toolkit to clear it. And I really see, you know, the people that are on the planet at this time as, you know, we are the baton passers. We're always the baton passers, but it's a very juicy time to be taking that old baton and passing on this new upgraded baton or pattern, depending on how you see it. So there's a real thing as well within White Dog Energy about loyalty, about being able to be true to ourselves and true to our word. And, you know, as somebody born within the White Dog Wavespell, this is something that, you know, all birth trauma aside and all childhood trauma aside, you know, commitment is something that I have really struggled with, and, you know, making commitments to other people and attachment issues, you know, are something that is still a thing, you know, for me. And it's a really, you know, within this wave spell, because this is the juice of it all, this is what is going to be very present for us. So we'll probably also get to see our dependence and, you know, codependent patterns and codependent relationships. And, you know, it's really an opportunity for us to, through creating boundaries, allowing these relationships to shift, as opposed to having to abandon these relationships as we would have done in the past. It's this real, okay, so we have to go to this space. Shall we go there together, or do we need to separate? So within this wave spell, there is going to be opportunities for relationships to shift, transform and end, and that's okay. You know, it's making space for all of this. And we're really going to be working with the patterns of our ancestors, whether that's our parents, whether that's our grandparents, whether it's further down the line. It always keeps getting passed, so there's a repeating pattern. So we really get to see, okay, so that thing that's going on in my life now, that thing that's always been a thing for me, we're allowed, you know, we can give space to reflecting on, where did that come from? Is that familiar within my family tree? It's a great time to speak to the elders in our family and find out all of those, you know, those juicy bits of information that seem to be getting quite lost now within family lines. What was our grandparents' childhood like? You know, what were our great-grandparents like? What were the, you know, as far back as we can get, to get a picture of these ancestors and what their lives were, can give us an insight into what we're working with and support us to be able to deal with it. Because when it's not that super personalised thing, when it's not, you know, when we can see where it comes from, it makes that tendency to go into blame of ourselves and of others less likely, because we're like, oh wow, it's just that pattern that has to repeat until I clear it. And this is the space that I'm really personally experiencing within my life now. You know, because I've been doing personal development for like the past 10 years, I'm getting to a space where all of that hard work, you know, I'm beginning to taste the difference in my life and in myself. And in some ways it's incredibly subtle, but for me it's fundamentally huge, you know. And yeah, we go through the cycles and things shift and change, but all of that stuff that, you know, it's funny, I don't know if it's the way that it goes for everyone or if it's the way that it goes just for me, but I kind of had to do everything arse end first. That's a bit of an inappropriate thing to say, but it was like, you know, reading about all the personal development stuff, reading about the law of attraction, getting it in here. It wasn't until I cleared the space that understanding has actually become an understanding that's lived. So it takes that time and that effort, but as we're coming to the end of this 13-year cycle of red moon, we are completing this purification thing. So for this wave spell, we are working with birth family patterns, we're working with relationships, we're working with unconditional love, we're working with our relationship with ourselves, we're working with things around loyalty and betrayal. So really allow yourself to unpack those stories, and when you unpack those stories, allow those light bulbs of revelations to come, which I feel are the little tune-ups of our vibration and the reality that we therefore get to live. Now, as I mentioned, you know, I've kind of gone through this whole upgrade, you know, within all elements of my person. So therefore, I am opening up my business name and YouTube channel to encompass many different things as well as just astrology. And I'm going to do another little video just going into a bit more detail about that, so keep your eyes peeled. I'm going to be offering new things on my website. There's going to be free things for you to access every month on the website, and also it's going to encompass all of the different offerings that I have, because I'm really feeling that, yes, the astrology is one strand of who I am and what I've got to offer, but there are many, so it feels very important to shift that. So for my coming videos, you know, I will be Jyoti offerings. I am Jyoti. It's going to be part of my offerings, and the, you know, the Wavespell reports are going to be one element of that, but there's also going to be different threads coming in. So I just wanted to give you a heads up about that. So I love you lots, and I hope that you have a wonderful Wavespell, and thank you for watching.